Well, the world keeps pressing stop when I'm pressing play. Now imagine yourselves. It's a morning, you wake up, it's raining, you're tired, you're stressed out, and you want some coffee. Also, you want to pick up some coffee for your coworkers. So, you go into your local coffee shop, and you're all ready to place your order, and as you do, the barista gives you one of these, heads like a deer in the headlights. They're taken aback, they don't know what to do. Meanwhile, that line behind you is getting even longer. People are grumbling, what's taking so long? One person tries to cut ahead of you and put their order in. What just happened there? That was a stop. I'm hitting play. I would like to make my order. And without realizing it, the barista was unintentionally pushing stop, stop, stop. We couldn't communicate. I couldn't just simply place my order. In fact, for deaf, blind, and hard of hearing people, we've had to become masters of ambiguity. I'll use my own lived experiences to share what does that mean, navigate ambiguity. Now there I am in the pictures, a joyful little girl, genuinely playful. But look at me in this picture. I'm the one in the middle, the little girl, who's looking up at the ski instructor. Now that ski instructor is not deaf and had no sign language. So there I am trying to figure out what are they teaching me? What are they saying? Just trying to catch anything. And on top of it, it was a Halloween festival on the hill. And so this fellow is dressed as a clown with full facial makeup and the big nose. And I'm trying to figure out, catch anything that they're saying. Now, look at the little girl beside me. She's looking down the hill and listening to what he's saying. And the other students, too, they seem to know what to do. So I try to copy them and figure it out. You know, what should I do, what I shouldn't do? And that's been a typical experience. I'm ready to play. I'm push and play. But I'm met with this unintelligible information. So those of us who are deaf, blind, and hard of hearing, it happens to us every day. We're out there push and play, and everywhere, anytime, with anyone, we might get a big stop. But this navigating through that ambiguity, I still did it. I pressed play, I kept going. True, it was a struggle. But for me, at the same time, I thought, oh, wait a minute, there's some benefit there. It allowed me to build my resilience and be able to figure out how to get through things. And that's been a huge asset to me as an entrepreneur. But again, you have to think, who designed that business ecosystem, the business world out there? So that business world out there, well, it was built by, 99.9% of it was by hearing people for hearing people. That's the reality. Yet again, I do want to share a story with you that illustrates something, that when I first started my business, I had very little resources, role models, how to network was not so easy. Remember, I had to get through that fog of the business world. At one point, I noticed a workshop that was entitled, How to Grow Your Business. Okay, perfect. That was a perfect match for what I was looking for. And I was available to attend. An interpreter was available as well. But who pays for the sign language interpretation? That is another stop. It stopped for me, not by me. And I feel like, the playing field is over there and it's not even level. I can't even get onto it. So you might be wondering, well then how can a deaf-owned business thrive? Well, one thing I found very interesting is looking at the concept of habitus, how we are socialized. This is from Bourdieu. This social theorist was looking at habitus as the attitudes, the behaviors, the values of people as a group, how they are socialized. And then if you take that a little further, there is deaf habitus and the habitus of those who are not deaf, hearing people. Two deaf researchers, Sommer and also O'Brien, have both looked into this. Now, deaf habitus is, as I mentioned, the norms, the traditions, the attitudes, what one would consider common sense that is within that community. And for us, communicating in sign language is the norm. And those who are not deaf, the hearing part of society, you also have your own ways of doing things. You use spoken language, hearing sounds seems to be important to you. And all of that is based on your life experience as you're growing up. But what happens when the two come in contact with each other? Then how does it work? Well, at that point, one has to turn to their habitus repertoire. Now, as a deaf person, a typical deaf person, I've had to navigate my way in the rest of society. And I have my habitus repertoire where I've learned how it is that those of you who have a different habitus to mine, how you do things and how I can succeed in your world. But is that really enough to succeed in the hearing world? It isn't. And that brings up the idea of capital. Again, this is Pierre Bourdieu, and he looks at status currency, where the person builds up their value, currency if you will, their capital. It would be based on their experience, their training, what they give to society, and in return, how they influence people. Now back to the concept of deaf and hearing, and their habitus, and mine. Each has capital, each parts of society, yours and mine. And in my diagram, I have hearing capital, $HG, and deaf capital with a $DF. Now, if someone who's hearing were to come into our deaf community, in order to have capital, they would have to be fluent in sign language, maybe went to a deaf school, all of those things that reflect our values and our socialization. And that's what makes a person more valuable. They have built up more capital in our part of society. And those who are in the hearing world also have their capital that they build up. But they are not the same. Different things are important to each group. For example, is sign language important to those who can hear? Not really. As I said, it's a sound-based world. There are leadership roles, and those who are attributed prestige are the ones that have the greatest hearing habitus, which as a deaf person, that's not what I have. So in dealing with other entrepreneurs, I have to show which capital that I bring to the table so that I can succeed in that hearing market. So what's in my wallet? I have to have this repertoire that I can have a choice of ways that I can interact with others. Makes you think, what's in your wallet? Now, let me go back to my journey as an entrepreneur. When I first set up my business, and in those first few years, it was very overwhelming because I didn't have any role model, very few resources, and that's me very ready to hit play. I had hit it. But the thing is, I was navigating through a world that wasn't known that well to me. Well, I was not socialized on that side of the world. So I had, thank goodness, a lot of external influences that I could call upon. But at the same time, as I built my staff, my deaf staff, I was a leader to them. But who was my role model? Where was that? So I had to come up with my own solution. And for me, that was to build my own leadership blueprint. I had to figure out what's best for me. And now I challenge you. Dare to build your own blueprint and press play. Thank you.